exposing the family's biggest lie on Christmas Eve. Hey Reddit, I've been lurking here for a while. Never thought I'd be the one posting, but after what happened this Christmas Eve, I need some advice, and maybe a little therapy. I, 28F, come from a very traditional family. Picture the kind of Christmas you'd see on a cheesy Hallmark movie. Twinkling lights, roaring fireplace, snow outside, matching pajamas, a giant tree that's been in the family for 3 generations. Every year, my parents host Christmas Eve dinner at their big old house, and the whole family piles in. My older brother Mark, 31M, his wife Jamie, 29F, my younger sister Emily, 24F, Aunt Rose, Uncle Pete, a couple cousins, and even our neighbor Mr. Franklin, who's basically adopted family at this point. But underneath all that picture-perfect stuffiness, there's always been this unspoken tension, like we're all holding our breath. My family thrives on keeping up appearances. I grew up knowing there were things we didn't talk about, but there's one secret in particular that's haunted me for years. It's about my dad. I overheard something late one night when I was 16. Hushed voices, my mom sobbing, my dad pleading. I pieced together that Dad had another child, a half-brother I'd never met. For years, I tried to convince myself I was wrong, but the way my parents would clam up if anything even brushed the topic, or how Dad would get suddenly, inexplicably angry. Well, it gnawed at me. For the last 12 years, I've carried this knowledge around like a hot coal, burning a hole in my chest. And now, with the family gathering looming, everyone oblivious, laughing, sipping mulled wine, I felt like I was about to combust. This was the year I snapped. I swear, the holidays always make family secrets feel heavier. The minute I stepped through my parents' door, everything smelled like cinnamon, roasting turkey, and stress. Mom greeted me with her usual too bright smile, hugging me a little too tightly, maybe sensing that I was carrying something more than just a suitcase. Dad avoided my eyes, busying himself with last-minute decorations, fiddling with the garland on the banister for the 10th time. My brother Mark was already there, laughing with Jamie about their baby's first Christmas. Emily swept in a few minutes later, already a glass of wine deep, cheeks flushed, talking about her new boyfriend, who couldn't make it, last-minute work thing. Aunt Rose was telling anyone who'd listen about her upcoming cruise. Uncle Pete asked if anyone remembered where he parked. It was all so normal on the surface, but my skin prickled every time someone mentioned family traditions or how lucky we are. As we hung stockings and swapped stories, my mind kept racing. Did anyone else know? Did Mom ever confide in Mark or Emily? I'd never dared to ask. Once, I almost did. Mark and I were sitting on the porch late one summer night, after too many beers, and he mentioned Dad disappearing a lot when they were kids. But I chickened out, joked it away. This year, it felt like every conversation was a minefield. When Mark brought out an old photo album and asked, "Remember this trip, Dad?" I watched my father's eyes dart away. Later, Emily teased Mom about her matchmaking schemes and said, "Maybe there's a secret brother somewhere, huh?" I nearly choked on my cider. My parents froze. I saw it, even if no one else did. By the time dinner rolled around, the pressure inside me was at a breaking point. I kept replaying the old secret, wondering what would happen if I finally dragged it into the light. Part of me was terrified. Another part was just so damn tired of pretending everything was perfect. The house was glowing with fairy lights, Christmas carols drifting through the speakers, laughter echoing down the hall. But for me, it felt like the calm before a storm. Dinner was a carefully orchestrated production, Mom's way of keeping everything and everyone under control. She'd assigned seats in advance. I got squeezed between Aunt Rose and Mr. Franklin, facing Dad at the head of the table. He carved the turkey with a steady hand, making small talk about the weather, traffic, even football, which he hates. The table was loaded with food and fake cheer. Conversation bounced from Mark's new promotion to Jamie's holiday cookie recipe to Emily's disastrous attempt at making eggnog. I smiled and nodded, but I was barely there. My pulse thudded in my ears. Every time my parents laughed at an old family story or shared a glance, I felt a strange, sour ache. Were they remembering that night? Did they still think no one knew? Then, midway through dinner, Mark's daughter dropped her spoon and crawled under the table, giggling. She bumped my knee and whispered, "You look sad, Auntie." I felt my throat tighten. Kids notice everything. I made some excuse about being tired, but inside, the dam was cracking. As the meal wound down, Dad raised a toast to family and to another year of being together. We're lucky, you know. Not everyone gets this. His words felt loaded, and I saw his hand tremble just slightly as he lifted his glass. That's when Emily, tipsy and unfiltered, blurted out, "Yeah, lucky none of our dirty laundry ever made it out of the house." She was joking, sort of. The room stilled for a beat too long. Mom's smile became brittle. I could see the fear in her eyes. Dad cleared his throat and changed the subject, but the laughter was forced. All at once, I realized. Everyone here had their own secrets, or at least their own suspicions. Maybe mine wasn't the only truth hiding under the tinsel and twinkle lights. The question was, did I have the courage to be the first to say it out loud? As dessert arrived and people moved to the living room for presents, my heart pounded. I knew the moment was coming. I just didn't know how it would end. After dinner, everyone migrated to the living room, balancing slices of pie and mugs of cocoa. The tree sparkled, the fire snapped, and carols played softly in the background. The little ones tore into their gifts, paper flying everywhere. The adults watched, trading knowing glances and tired smiles. I tried to focus on the chaos of unwrapping and thank yous, but my mind kept drifting. Every laugh sounded sharper. Every clink of a glass made me flinch. I caught Mom staring at me a few times, her eyes full of pleading, like she could sense what I was thinking. Dad, on the other hand, barely looked my way. He kept himself busy, helping Mark set up a new toy for his daughter, making small talk with Mr. Franklin, doing anything but meeting my gaze. I found myself standing by the window, watching the snow fall in heavy, silent flakes. I remembered being a kid, pressing my nose to this same glass, wishing for magic, hoping Santa would fix everything broken in our house. But I wasn't a kid anymore. The magic was gone, replaced by the heavy burden of truth. Mark came over, handed me a glass of wine, and nudged me playfully. "You good, sis?" he asked, concern softening his face. I almost told him everything right there, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, I just nodded and took a sip, feeling the warmth burn all the way down. The gift exchange was next, my mom's favorite tradition. We all drew names weeks ago, pretending not to know who had who, even though Emily always spilled the beans early. Gifts were unwrapped with the usual excitement, but I could barely pay attention. My present, a set of journals from Mom, felt like a cruel joke. What would I even write? How to ruin Christmas in one easy step. By the time the last present was opened, the secret inside me was screaming. I realized I couldn't wait any longer. If I didn't speak now, I never would. My hands shook as I stood up, heart racing. "Can I say something?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. The room quieted, and every face turned toward me. This was it. For a second, nobody said anything, just the crackle of the fire and the distant sound of carolers outside. I felt everyone's eyes on me. I glanced at Mom, who looked like she might shatter if I breathed wrong. Dad stared down at his empty plate. Mark's hand rested on his daughter's shoulder, his brow furrowed in concern. Emily rolled her eyes, assuming I was about to launch into a sentimental speech. But my voice came out steadier than I felt. "There's something I need to talk about. I know this isn't the time anyone wants heavy stuff, but I can't keep pretending everything's perfect." The words hovered in the air, thick and electric. I could see Mark's confusion, Emily's curiosity, Mom's rising panic, and Dad's jaw set in a way I'd only seen a few times before. For a wild moment, I thought maybe I'd lose my nerve. But then the years of silence, the years of secrets, pushed me forward. "Dad," I said, and his head jerked up. "I know about the other child. I've known for a long time. I overheard you and Mom talking when I was 16. I know I have a half-brother somewhere." Aunt Rose gasped. Jamie's hand shot to her mouth. Emily laughed at first, thinking I was joking, but then she saw my face and went pale. Even Mr. Franklin, who'd always been half asleep through most of our dinners, sat up straighter. The silence was so heavy it felt like it would crush me. Dad opened his mouth, then shut it, like he couldn't find his voice. Mom's eyes filled with tears. Mark just stared at me, slack-jawed. "I'm sorry," I said, my hands trembling. "But I can't keep pretending. We all deserve to know the truth, even if it hurts. I'm done living in a family built on secrets." The room erupted. Emily yelled, demanding to know what I was talking about. Aunt Rose started sobbing. Mark stood up, looking between me and Dad, waiting for someone, anyone, to make sense of this mess. And in the chaos, I realized there was no going back. The secret was out. The real Christmas had just begun. The living room exploded with noise. Everyone talking at once, voices overlapping in shock and confusion. Aunt Rose clutched her pearls, sobbing. How could you keep something like this from us? Emily was shouting. Wait, what the hell? Is this true? Dad, Mom. Her wine glass trembled in her hand. Mark, usually the calm one, looked like he'd been punched. Dad, is this for real? He turned to our mother, voice cracking. Mom. My father looked so small suddenly. The man who always filled a room, who dominated every conversation, was shrinking into the couch, staring at his hands. Mom just shook her head, tears streaming silently down her cheeks. For a second, I hated myself for hurting her, but the feeling passed, replaced by anger that she'd let this go on so long. Finally, Dad cleared his throat, his voice thin and broken. It was a mistake. Years ago, I thought I could handle it alone. I never wanted to hurt any of you. I thought I could protect this family by keeping it secret. Emily was crying now, mascara running. Protect us? Are you kidding? Do you know what it feels like to be lied to your whole life? Her words cut through the room. Jamie squeezed Mark's arm, her own eyes glossy. Why didn't you ever tell us? She whispered to Mom. Aunt Rose demanded to know if there were more secrets. Her mind running wild with the possibilities. Mr. Franklin, the perennial peacemaker, tried to calm everyone. Now, let's just take a breath. There's still a family here, just a hurting one. But there was no calming this storm. Voices rose again, blame flying in all directions. I felt a strange relief, even as the scene fell apart. The truth was ugly, yes, but at least it was out. No more pretending. No more tiptoeing around the elephant in the room. In the chaos, I saw Mom watching me, her face a mix of devastation and gratitude. It was hard to tell. Dad finally looked up, eyes rimmed red. If you want to know about him, about your brother, I'll tell you everything. I realized we'd crossed a line as a family. There was no way back to the old normal. The air felt thin, like the oxygen had been sucked from the room. Emily stormed off to the kitchen, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the ornaments. Aunt Rose kept mumbling prayers, her hands shaking. Mark stood frozen, torn between anger and heartbreak, staring at Dad as if seeing him for the first time. Mom wiped her face and tried to gather herself. Please, everyone, just sit down. We need to talk this through. We owe it to each other. Her voice was shaky but stronger than I'd expected. Reluctantly, people settled. Emily came back, arms crossed, chin trembling. Jamie coaxed the kids upstairs, leaving the adults alone with the wreckage. For a moment, nobody spoke. Then Mark asked, how old is he? Where is he? Does he even know about us? Dad looked at each of us, the weight of years pressing down. He's a few years older than Emily. His name is Ryan. I haven't seen him in a long time. I send money. His mother and I agreed it was better this way. I was young, scared. I thought I could move on, but I couldn't. Aunt Rose sniffled. Does Grandma know? Mom shook her head. Only me. I found out after I married your father. We decided to keep it quiet. I told myself it was for the best. She looked at me, guilt etched in every line of her face. Emily stared at the floor. Do you even care how much you hurt us? She whispered. Mark put a protective arm around her shoulders, but he was trembling too. I felt an odd mix of sorrow and freedom. I'd imagined this moment for years, dreaded it, needed it. Now that it was here, I realized how deep our wounds really ran. Dad started to apologize, but Mark cut him off. You lied to all of us, Dad. What happens now? No one had an answer. The Christmas lights twinkled behind us, strangely out of place in a room so full of pain. For the first time, our family felt fragile and honest. The silence was broken only by the wind rattling the windows, muffled carols playing on the radio, and the soft hiccup of Emily's crying. Mom tried to comfort her, but Emily pulled away, shaking her head. Mark stared at Dad with eyes that looked older than they had that morning. The room, usually so warm and safe, felt alien. I finally spoke, the words tumbling out before I could second-guess them. Dad, does Ryan want anything to do with us? Does he even know he has siblings? My voice was gentler now, the anger draining, replaced by curiosity and, unexpectedly, hope. Dad ran a hand through his hair. I honestly don't know. His mom and we lost touch. When you kids were little, I thought I was protecting everyone. But I see now how wrong I was. I should have told you. I should have tried to make things right. His eyes glistened with tears. Aunt Rose cleared her throat, her voice softening. People make mistakes. But secrets like this, they poison everything. She looked at me, then at Mark and Emily. You're brave for saying something. Emily finally looked up, her face blotchy. So what? Are we just supposed to move on? How do you fix something this big? Her question hung in the air. Mom reached for her hand. We start by being honest, from now on. No more pretending. We can only go forward. Mark let out a shaky breath. Maybe we find Ryan. If he wants to know us, we let him. If not, at least we tried. For the first time all night, there was something like agreement, a fragile truce. I saw a flicker of gratitude in Dad's eyes and something softer in Mom's. No one pretended this was going to be easy, but at least we'd stopped running. The Christmas Eve I dreaded had torn us apart, but maybe it was also the night we could start putting ourselves back together. There was pain, sure, but there was also a tiny, stubborn spark of hope. Nobody slept much that night. After the dust settled, the house was too quiet. No laughter, no music, just the uneasy sounds of people moving around in the dark. I heard Emily crying in the bathroom, Mark talking softly to Jamie in their guest room, Mom pacing the upstairs hallway. Even Dad, usually a deep sleeper, sat in the living room with a blanket over his knees, staring into the dying embers of the fireplace. I went down for water around 2 a.m. and found Dad still awake. He looked up as I entered, his face raw, older than I'd ever seen him. For a long time, neither of us spoke. Finally, he said, I'm sorry I put this on your shoulders. You shouldn't have had to carry it alone. I nodded, sitting beside him. I just couldn't keep pretending. I was angry for so long, but mostly, I was scared. Scared I wasn't enough. That you'd leave us for your other family. He shook his head, eyes filling. You are enough. All of you are. I made a mess. I'm sorry. It wasn't a magical fix. No big emotional breakthrough. Just two people, tired and honest, sitting together in the dark. But for the first time, I saw my father not as the villain, but as a flawed, scared man who'd made bad choices and tried to live with them. Later, I checked on Emily. She let me crawl into bed with her like we were kids. We cried, whispered our fears, and I told her everything I'd overheard years ago, the night our parents thought nobody was listening. Emily was furious, then sad, then numb. I wish I'd known, she said. But I guess I'm glad you told us now, even if it sucks. The rest of the night was a blur. I drifted in and out of sleep, haunted by what had changed and what might come next. Christmas morning would dawn on a family forever different, but at least a little less afraid of the truth. Christmas morning arrived, gray and quiet. The house felt different, emptier, raw. The usual sounds of children tearing through wrapping paper were muffled upstairs, the adults moving slowly, voices soft. Mom made coffee in silence, her face drawn but somehow lighter, like she'd put down a weight she'd carried for years. Dad made breakfast, and for the first time I could remember, he asked if anyone wanted to help instead of doing it all himself. Mark joined him at the stove, side by side, not talking much, but there was something almost gentle in the silence. Emily and I set the table. I caught her eye, and she gave me a weak but genuine smile. Jamie brought the kids down, hugging me a little longer than usual. We sat down together, different, yes, but together. There were no speeches, no forced laughter, just honest, simple conversation. The elephant wasn't gone, but it was in the open now. No more pretending. At some point, Mark said, we have a lot to figure out, but I want to try. He looked at Dad. If you're willing, maybe we can reach out to Ryan. I don't know what will happen, but I want to try. Dad nodded, eyes misty. I want that too. I should have wanted it a long time ago. Emily added, if he doesn't want to know us, we'll deal with it. But I'd rather be rejected for the truth than live with a lie. There were tears, of relief, of fear, of hope. For the first time, I felt like maybe we were really a family, not because we were perfect, but because we'd faced something ugly and refused to let it break us. Christmas morning didn't heal everything, but it was a start. The truth was out. The story was ours to finish, together. As I looked around the table, I realized honesty, however painful, was the best gift we could give each other. Even in the ruins, there was space to rebuild.